Welcome to The Fight on Matrix Midwest with Randy Carricker and company.
Hi kids, welcome to the program. Great to have you with us. That is Andrew Rogers. I am Randy Carricker, and we've got quite a show for you coming up, do we not?
Oh, we do.
Sad news for Lindsey Vonn. We have 4 downs from the Super Bowl, and as spring training starts, our top Cardinals spring surprises. But let's get things started with our quick hits. At the Super Bowl, the Seahawks defense was as dominant in the Super Bowl as it had been all season as they hammered the Patriots on Sunday night at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California. The team with the best defense won, and 8 of the top 12 defenses in the NFL this year made the playoffs. Meanwhile, MVP Matthew Stafford, along with numbers 2 and 3 yardage leaders among quarterbacks, Jared Goff and Dak Prescott, were watching on TV on Sunday. Could it be that we're seeing the switch back to dominant defenses leading the way to Super Bowl victories?
I honestly think, Randy, we've seen in a majority of the Super Bowls dominant defenses for the teams that did win. I mean, you just go look back at last season. The Eagles, yes, they had a dominant offense, but that defense was still one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in all of the NFL. And then you can keep going back. The Chiefs had a dominant defense when they won. It was more of an offensive shootout with the Chiefs and Eagles the year before, and then the Rams, probably not a dominant defense when they won the Super Bowl. But you could always point to, if you said, hey, this team won the Super Bowl, they probably also had one of the best defenses, if not a top 5 defense in the league.
I guess the big part of this is that it seems like we're headed back to running games and less explosive offenses because the defense aren't allowing the offenses to be as explosive as they have been in previous Super Bowls. This isn't across the league. During the regular season, fantasy football still rules, and there are still going to be a ton of points scored. But it seems like as you get into the postseason, the defenses and the pass rushes and the running defenses are tougher and tougher and tougher.
Well, and I thought about this a lot about generational quarterbacks. And you'd think just by saying that term, generational, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, guys like that you would say, oh, it's going to be offensive heavy no matter what. But even when those guys get to the Super Bowl, it's not overly likely that they are going to be that fantasy football quarterback that you talk about week in and week out.
Let's talk about some hockey. The Blues are off for the Olympic break, and we'll spend that break with the second worst record in the National Hockey League. When play resumes, the Blues will likely have Robert Thomas and Dylan Holloway back from their injuries. Thomas has been on IR since January 15th, Holloway since January 29th, both with lower body injuries. Holloway has only played 1 game since December 12th and has missed 23 of 24 because of the trade of Nick Bjugstad. The Blues will never have their opening day lineup available, but can Jim Montgomery get this group going? And I think more importantly and interesting, do the Blues want to get this group winning?
I don't think the Blues ever take the ice and say, all right, let's try to lose tonight so that we can, get that number 1 pick.
Not the players.
The fans definitely want that, Randy. They want the franchise to lose at this point. And just think about it. The Blues have 49 points now at the Olympic break. The second best wild card team right now is the Anaheim Ducks. They have 63 points. You are so far behind the 8 ball that not even the whole month of March is going to help you come back and even vie for a playoff spot. So just keep staying where you're at. If you have to keep taking steps back, sure, whatever, but stay where you are.
And if you're Alexander Steen, your first draft as a general manager, would you rather miss the playoffs by a point or miss the playoffs to the point where you can have the first or second pick in the draft?
Absolutely. I would rather have the first, second pick all the time if I'm not making the playoffs.
Yeah, they're not making the playoffs.
You don't get a trophy or a ribbon for being the first team out of the playoffs, but you do get that by getting the number 1 pick.
Yeah, and so that's where I am with this. I want them to play well. I want the young players to get better, but I don't want them to get so much better that they start winning and cost themselves a great draft choice. We talked last week about how U.S. skier Lindsey Vonn with a ruptured ACL was going to try to ski in the Olympics anyway. And on Sunday, she was in a terrible crash in Italy. She was down for 20 minutes being treated, had to be airlifted to a clinic in Cortina, then transferred to a larger hospital in Treviso, a 2-hour drive to the south. She was being treated by a multidisciplinary team and underwent an orthopedic operation to stabilize a fracture reported in her left leg. The U.S. ski team said in an earlier statement that Vonn was in stable condition and in good hands with a team of American and Italian physicians. I wonder, though, if those people that run the U.S. ski team, sponsored, by the way, by St. Louis-based Stiefel, I wonder if those people were being responsible with her health by allowing her to ski on Sunday.
You know, I also wonder, too, of how much of a voice they had in the health of Lindsey Vonn. She's had so many injuries over the course of her career, and she's also in her 40s now, to the point where she knows her body better than anybody else. So if she says, hey, I'm going, and if you trained for this moment and you kept training over and over for years, and then a week before the actual event, you had to say, no, I can't do it anymore. That's really hard for a competitor like herself to say. And so since she is this late in her career, she probably thought, this is my last go at it. And you know what? Whatever happens, happens.
Well, somebody's got to be the adult. But do you think, for example, if Jackson Smith and Jigba had an ACL injury on Sunday, would the Seahawks have allowed him to go?
Probably not.
I think you have to.
Because of age there?
Yeah, well, I think at some point somebody's got to be the adult in the room.
And I hear you.
And say, okay, you can cause yourself a catastrophic injury, which she did by skiing with this injury.
Yeah, I totally hear you. I just think this was Vaughn's last go. And no matter what, and this will be her last go now, right? Mm-hmm. You don't come back from something like this at her age. At least it would be very unlikely to see her repping USA after this.
She'll be 45 at the next Olympics,
right,
too.
And that's why I say it's highly unlikely she's returning.
As the Cardinals start spring training this week, they do it without 4 stalwarts from their 2025 opening day roster. Sonny Gray, Wilson Contreras, Nolan Arenado, and Brendan Donovan, who was dealt to Seattle last week. As it turns out, according to The Athletic, Donovan almost landed in Houston. The deal would have sent Isaac Paredes to Boston and Donovan to the Astros. Instead, Boston pivoted and they acquired Caleb Durbin, the Wash U product from Milwaukee. It's unclear what other players would have gone the Cardinals' way in that 3-way trade. Of course, the deal that brought Donovan to Seattle sent 2 former Mariners first-round picks, Gerangelo Sainja and outfielder Ty Peete, to the Cardinals. Guess one of the hang-ups might have been that the Cardinals have already picked over the Red Sox system with the Gray and Contreras deal.
Yeah, probably. And we knew from the start that Chaim Bloom wasn't just going to trade Donovan to say that he traded Donovan before the start of this season. He was cool with having Donovan back on this team. And heck, the Cardinals might have even just re-signed Donovan to a bigger contract, saying like, okay, you're going to be a guy that we form this thing around. But they got the deal that they were looking for. And they might have even gotten an overpay in this case, because I checked all of the fan blogs and Seattle chat rooms, and they weren't very happy when they first made this deal. They thought they got fleeced. They either don't know who Brendan Donovan is and what he can be for that team, or maybe they're onto something and say, we might have given up a little too much for one player.
I would think that the Mariners are going, once they get a load of Brendan Donovan, they're going to be very happy with having him on their team. And I don't think, just looking at the Red Sox and Astros systems, I don't think the Cardinals could have done an awful lot better than what they did in what they got from Seattle.
Especially because the Red Sox top prospects are current Major League Baseball players on that team.
Yeah.
And so it's not like you just upgrade the guys that were previously 8 or 9 in your system to be a number 1 or number 2 in baseball like Roman Anthony was.
All right. Interesting takes from a couple of members of the Patriots that benefited from Bill Belichick's cheating to win Super Bowls. Randy Moss on the ESPN Super Bowl pregame, Rodney Harrison on the NBC pregame. Moss says he's unhappy that Belichick and Robert Kraft, who coached and owned the Patriots that he played on, didn't make the Hall of Fame. And he says if you didn't play or you didn't coach, you shouldn't have a Hall of Fame ballot. Well, Kraft didn't play or coach. Should he even be allowed in the Hall under Moss's restrictions? And I think it's abominable. I said it, that Torrey Holt isn't in the Hall of Fame. But what's the guarantee that players and coaches are going to do any better?
There isn't a guarantee. The system is already flawed and will be flawed forever. The Major League Baseball's Hall of Fame system is flawed, and that's just kind of how it goes. That's the best thing about having different opinions, though. You're going to have just arguments one way or another. I don't think Rodney Harrison's take that Tom Brady wouldn't be Tom Brady without Bill Belichick is true in any sense of that word, and I also don't think Randy Moss's words here are true either.
Well, there was one member of the Veterans Committee that was going to make it, okay, out of that committee. Kraft and Belichick were both not going to make it. And what Rodney Harrison did on Sunday in telling Tony Dungy, who is a voter, that they got it wrong, he said, okay, well, Roger Craig doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Roger Craig, who went to 3 Super Bowls, to me is very deserving of being in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He was the first player ever to have 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving in the same season. No respect for that player. No respect for the people who actually did the voting, and a complete misunderstanding of the way the rules work, because he's comparing the players that got in this era, the Adam Vinatieri's of the world, the Luke Kuechly's of the world, to a different ballot, a different vote altogether that had Kraft and Belichick, along with Ken Anderson, along with Roger Craig, along with L.C. Greenwood, two completely separate entities.
How about him also being a player and knocking down another player?
Yeah, that's what he did.
I think that's such a big thing to notice here, too, because he's saying, I want players and coaches to be the voters, right? Mm-hmm. But why, as a player, are you knocking down another player for being a Hall of Famer?
Well,
player to player.
Moss was the one that said that players or coaches should have a vote. But Rodney Harrison.
Right, but I'm just kind of combining the two thoughts here. Like, we're talking about you knocking down a player and saying a coach or an owner should be in over said player.
Well, Rodney Harrison has made a career of cheap shots, and this was just another one. Those are your quick hits here in the fight. Later in the show, we're going to have some risky business. We're going to build a parlay, and we hope that you will check it out for us. Coming up, 4 downs from the Super Bowl here in the fight. Time now for 4 downs from the Super Bowl. And Andrew, my first down is this. The story of Super Bowl 60, as we all know by now, was the Seahawks defense. Drake May sacked 6 times. He was under siege all night long. Derek Hall and Byron Murphy of Seattle each had a couple of sacks. I thought before the game that the chess match between Patriots offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels and Seahawks head coach and defensive play caller Mike McDonald would go a long way towards determining this one, and it did. The Patriots had 253 yards in garbage time in the fourth quarter, which didn't help you at all. When it mattered, quarters 1 through 3, 78 yards for the Patriots offense and no points. That defense was a problem. I don't know if it's going to be in the future. I don't know who they're going to have. But, man, on Sunday night, that Seattle defense was everything that it was cracked up to be.
Yeah, Randy says it didn't help me at all because I had the under for Drake May's passing yards of the game for the game, and he had like 114 with 8 minutes to go, and then all of a sudden he ended with, 250?
Yeah.
And then he ended with more than Sam Darnold, too, which actually screwed up a different bet of mine. But that's beside the point. You talk about just the great defense and how much better in the trenches Seattle was in this football game than the Patriots. A lot of people are going to point to that schedule and say, oh, the Patriots didn't belong there. Look, credit to the Patriots for being able to turn this ship around so quickly. They're probably the best team in all of the NFL to do that in just 1 year's time with the whole grouping of players. But this Seattle defense, I mean, you could pick a different guy and just say he probably would get a sack tonight because that's just how good they've been all season.
And not in the history of the NFL.
Well, I guess in total of...
Greatest show on turf went from 4-12 to 13-3 and won the Super Bowl.
Right, that is true. The total number of players, I think, was the statistic I saw. I think they had a 65% turnover, and then all the way back to the Super Bowl. So, yes, they didn't end up winning. And, of course, I don't want to give the Patriots too many flowers for this case. All right, my first down, Randy. The worry of this game was that it might be boring. And we hoped it would be, the score we wanted, a high-scoring football game. But guess what? The worry turned out to be true. The game was boring. Little offense, dominant defense, to Randy's last point. A lot of special teams, too. And even when the scoring happened in the fourth, don't look too deeply into the 30-point score. This game was 12-0 through 3 quarters. It wasn't a fun Super Bowl to watch. And to make matters worse, I couldn't care less about either team in it. I know I said it. I've been saying it the whole time. I just did not really have a rooting interest here, and all I wanted for the fans was a high-scoring football game, and instead, you got defense.
You know what I was hoping for was Super Bowl 34, again, the Rams and the Titans. That was 9-0 at halftime. Torrey Holt catches a touchdown pass to make it 16-0, and it was 16-0 after 3, and the Titans came back to tie the game. New England just didn't have that chance against that Seattle defense.
Yeah, they didn't have the gas that the Titans had in that Super Bowl. But, I just talked to a lot of people, little interest in either team, and I just thought in order for the Super Bowl to get the numbers that they want, you need Sam Darnold to look like he did over the 13 wins that he had.
And I think the other part of it is it's hard to build an emotional investment. A lot of people hated the Chiefs because they got all the calls or Patrick Mahomes won too much. A lot of that happens. We haven't had time to build up an emotional investment in the Seahawks. And The guys, unfortunately, on New England, aside from Robert Kraft, he's very hateable, but they're either likable or we haven't had the opportunity to build up disdain for them like we did with the previous iteration of the Patriots. So there really wasn't the ability, from my perspective, or yours, I think, to have an emotional investment in the game.
Which is so funny because I am a walking winner's fatigue individual. I am a walking example of winner's fatigue. And I didn't like the two teams in this. And these two teams in it, even though the teams themselves we've seen in the past, they aren't the same two teams that we've seen in the past. So it's just funny how I kind of am a hypocrite in my own way.
All right, my second down. Kenneth Walker won MVP with 27 carries for 135 yards. I mentioned the defense above. Well, back in my younger days, coaches always talked about running the ball and stopping the run. That's how you won a football game. It's still played in the Super Bowl, just like it did last year for Philadelphia. Seattle outrushed the Patriots 141-79, but a lot of that 79 came from Drake May. The New England running backs, Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson, ran the ball just 13 times for 42 yards. That's no way to win a game. Unless you have the greatest show on turf passing the ball, it's hard to win a Super Bowl with a rushing attack like that, and that lack of Pat's rushing yards from their running backs is attributable to the Seahawks defense. Seattle was that good defensively. I think they could have played 8 quarters, and New England never would have been able to run the ball by handing it off to their running backs.
Okay, more impressive Kenneth Walker stat here. What he showed you in the Super Bowl and winning Super Bowl MVP, or getting Mel Tucker $90 million after just one season?
Yeah, no question. It's getting Mel Tucker $90 million after just one season. Well, he was the best running back in college football, won the Doak Walker Award. And absolutely, Mel Tucker, well, he got his 90 mil.
Yeah, he's living the dream right now, thanks to Kenneth Walker. And I agree with you. I think that if you were choosing the most impressive moment of Kenneth Walker's career, it's by making money for somebody else.
That's true. And by the way, he might have been fired for cause. I might not be accurate about that 90 million. But
he also couldn't win.
No,
he couldn't win without Kenneth Walker. Okay, my second down. We talked about this Monday morning. I'm with Pat McAfee, Randy. We talk about MVPs. Kenneth Walker won the MVP. I think Jason Myers should have won Super Bowl MVP, even though Kenneth Walker had that great run game. And Kenneth Walker, you know I like you, but I also love kickers, and you didn't dictate the outcome. Jason Myers did. Look at this field goal going through, Randy.
Oh, great.
There's one. He did that 4 more times in this game. There were too many defensive players that could have won MVP for me to say, hey, because I think somebody on defense probably should have won the MVP in the game, but since you couldn't choose just one, I'm like, give it to the kicker. Let's make history. He set a Super Bowl record. Again, I love kickers, and I know it doesn't hold a lot of weight, but Jason, you're my MVP.
And I will go back to this. I just don't think that Jason Myers would have been able to kick 5 field goals if it weren't for Kenneth Walker, the third, running the ball. I think that's a problem for a kicker when he doesn't get it into field goal position.
No, come on, just side with me. Side with me here. Jason Myers.
Yeah, I could never vote for a kicker.
Come on, kickers!
Kickers are some of my favorite people. Jeff Wilkins, one of my favorite greatest show on turf guys. Really quality people for the most part.
Is Neil Lomack?
Neil was a quarterback.
Neil Lomack was a quarterback, you idiot. No, I said Neil Lomack.
Oh.
That's a quote from The Water Boy, but it's with Joe Montana.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm
not
giving it. I'm not giving it to it. The bottom line, I'm not giving it to a kicker. All right, third down. How often does it happen that a team falls off after losing coordinators? The Seahawks are going to lose their offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak, who's taking over the Raiders. It's happened to the Eagles twice when they lost Jonathan Gannon to the Cardinals and Shane Steichen to Indy. And again, when they lost Kellen Moore to Philadelphia. It happened to the Lions when they lost both coordinators last season. It even happened to Bill Belichick when he lost Charlie Weiss and Romeo Crennel after the 2004 season when they won the Super Bowl. They didn't win another title for 10 years after those two left for head coaching jobs. So that's something to keep an eye on next season. Kubiak had a great relationship with Darnold. They had things going, even though it wasn't the most prolific offense in the world. Changing over a spot that important makes it really difficult the next season, and I'm interested to see how Mike McDonald and the rest of the Seahawks handle it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. You lose coordinators at any spot, and we saw that with Detroit, right? Detroit lost offense and defense, and where did Detroit go? Not in the playoffs, right? You look at the Eagles that you make a comparison of, and you see them go to Arizona and Indianapolis. Well, they actually did a decent job of turning that organization around, but there are a lot of cases that you can make where, hey, you don't have your quarterback or your coordinators anymore, and now all of a sudden you have a whole new system, and it might not work perfectly.
Yeah, and by the way, there are a couple of potential candidates that'll probably be will be promoted from within in Seattle. And another thing I think is that it's just best to go outside the organization and get your new offensive coordinator from there.
Outside, external hires.
But there are some guys that are that have good resumes on that Seattle staff that have been offensive coordinators before. Jake Peets is probably going to get the job.
Right. And when you look at external hires, you know what stinks for Super Bowl winners is that you totally get the runt of the litter.
Oh, no doubt about it. You get the last person standing. Yeah.
Even Cliff Kingsbury has a job at this point in time.
Right.
Okay, my third down. Drew Lock affirms that Mizzou is QB to you. That's right, backup you. As he joined Blaine Gabbert and Chase Daniel as Super Bowl champs and didn't even take a snap. None of those guys took a snap. Here's the deal. So many people out there are saying, who cares? Who cares that Drew Lock won a Super Bowl? I've got a comparison that should make you care. So if you were to tell me Thomas Ajacey and the Cardinals win the World Series, and should Thomas Ajacey get a ring because he came off the bench? Absolutely, he should get a ring because guess what? He's on the Major League roster. And, if you're in a situation when you need that guy to step up, he would be there and ready for you. That's what Drew Lock is. He's the man waiting in the wing. He's the understudy to the protagonist in your story. So, yes, his ring, this team, it's going to be just as sparkly as Sam Darnold's and Kenneth Walker's, and he's a Super Bowl champion regardless of what anybody says.
And I don't think this is a coincidence that these players are developed by the University of Missouri to become real good NFL players. And here's the thing, they might not be starting, but they're on scout teams and they're preparing a defense for the next game. And you have to be, especially Chase Daniel, very supportive of the starter. There's a lot to be said for being a good backup quarterback, and congratulations to Mizzou for having 3 of them that have won Super Bowls now.
Easily one of the best jobs, too.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it.
Never have to step foot on the field.
Most popular guy in town.
Exactly. You are the Alex Moran of your town.
Yeah. So, all right. So that is third down. So fourth down. The over-under on this game was 45.5. And with 2:10 left in the game, the score was what it would end up being, 29-13, a total of 42. And the country either erupted or groaned when Kenneth Walker took off on a 49-yard touchdown run to take the score over. But wait, a flag. Oh man, those dollars are fragile. Jalen Sundell with a holding penalty, and then on 3rd and 23, Walker gained a yard, and there was no more scoring. The Seahawks did cover, but those that had the under were just fine, and those that had the over were pissed.
I'm pretty sure Jalen Sundell's a Missouri native, too. I think he's from Maryville, Missouri. So how about that?
So he changed the outcome for many bettors in this game.
Well, I stayed away from the over and the under. I was leaning under before the game, so I would have, shot some confetti cannons up in the air after I saw that happen. But in general, it was like Bad Beat City in the fourth quarter.
Oh, yeah.
There were so many things that you could point to and just say, man, how the heck did this garbage time touchdown be the last one? Like Ramondre Stevenson, there was promos running on all different sportsbook. If you guessed the right anytime touchdown score, if he scored first or last, you'd get a share of bonus bets. People had Seattle's defense. Tons of people had Seattle's defense. And then Ramondre Stevenson just can go down the field and, find his way into the end zone.
How about that?
Yeah, unbelievable. Bad Beat City. And my last one, Randy, because we're talking about sports betting now and into the next segment, I think Missouri missed out big time in the novelty props department. Unlike other states, including Illinois, state regulators denied a request to allow most popular non-playoff proposition bets last month. That decision mentioned coin toss results, so you couldn't bet on heads or tails. You couldn't bet on the color of Gatorade dumped on the winning coach. And here's my thought. People are just going to bet on Super Bowl Sunday. Why would you limit the amount of money you would make? The fact that any state would restrict these things just blows my mind. Vegas doesn't keep the lights on because people win all the time. So it's just a big miss for Missouri, in my opinion.
And if you do want to bet on that stuff, if you're on this side of the state, you can just cross over a bridge and go to Illinois.
And that's what you could have done. You could have done the coin toss.
You can go to Kansas and do the same thing. So why literally put cash in the hands of the coffers of the state of Illinois or the coffers of the state of Kansas. I just don't get how far behind we are in gambling, because here's the thing, and I know that the people that are against it are going to say, okay, well, it's going to cause a lot of problems for a lot of people. It's going to cause a lot of problems for a lot of people, whether it's in your state or in another state, right? So I know you, from a moral standpoint, you might want to say, well, we're trying to protect these people. Well, you know what? You aren't, because they're going to Illinois and giving them their money. So you might as well hop on board and deal with it.
It's all about accessibility.
Yeah.
You could even do it, the wrong way here in Missouri and do it on a book that isn't regulated in the state, just to say that you were able to place that wager. People will find a way to do it, so you might as well have the money go back to your state.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I don't think either of these teams make it back to the Super Bowl next year. I don't think Seattle
And
is
Seattle's
back.
the favorite right now.
I know they are, but I don't think they're going to be back. And I think part of it is the coaching. I think part of it is it's just hard to repeat. And part of it is the NFC is going to be pretty good.
Especially the West.
Yeah, well, the Rams are good. That's exactly right. The Niners presumably will be healthy. But Bears, Vikings might get a quarterback if they get Kirk Cousins
Lions
back.
should be better.
Lions should be better. Packers are going to be good. There's going to be a lot of good teams in the NFC. And don't forget, somewhere in that South, one team that kind of looks like they're on an upward trajectory is the Carolina Panthers, too. So there's going to be some teams out there in 2026 to give Seattle all they can handle.
And if the Bucs are healthy, watch out.
And don't worry,
were hurt all year.
don't worry about the Cowboys.
They just won't make it.
Yeah,
They'll go 8-8 and be that team that doesn't have a good draft pick.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, coming up in the list of the biggest spring surprises in St. Louis sports history. That's next here on The Fight. It's time for the list, and with spring training getting underway, there's always a surprise down in Jupiter, isn't there? Our list is the biggest Cardinal spring training surprises of all time, and I'm going to go with my number 3, Andrew. The spring of 2008 was great for our friend Kyle McClellan. The Cardinals were in a bit of a retool, and Kyle forced a job open with his spring performance. Despite having never pitched above Double-A ball, McClellan put together a 1.13 ERA in 13 innings. Because Chris Carpenter was coming off of Tommy John surgery and he was a little bit iffy, the club needed the innings that McClellan could give. He came north with the club and turned in a 2.94 ERA in his 45 first-half games. And McClellan wound up getting a World Series ring with the 2011 Cardinals. Great surprise coming out of spring training, and he made that surprise stand up with a really good Major League career.
And you love the fact that he came from the St. Louis area, right?
Hazelwood West.
Over anything else. Like, you love watching homegrown talent pitch in the jersey that they grew up loving. And so Kyle McClellan, one of those guys, he was also one of probably the more consistent arms in the bullpen. You could just go to him and say, can you lock this down for us? Can you just get us back to the plate? He would do that for you and deliver. I'm curious, because this was like 2008 to 2013 was kind of his career.
Yeah, 12, yeah.
Yeah. For you, when you kind of just, analyze everything with him, was it, too many starts for him, arm fatigue that caused his career to be so short?
Yeah,
what was that?
He injured his arm.
Yeah,
and then went to Texas. Had a couple of good years in Texas, but was never really healthy. Actually, after 2011, he wasn't healthy for the postseason in 2011. Never really what he was before that.
Well, I remember when they called him up for Adam Wainwright to be a starting pitcher, and then they brought him back to the bullpen, and he just had probably the most overused arm in the bullpen, so that makes sense. I just couldn't really connect the dots in total.
And now he and his wife have the Brace for Impact 46 Foundation, doing amazing work here in the St. Louis area and in Haiti as well.
Yeah, just an awesome person. Okay, my number 3, Randy, another bullpen pitcher and a guy that came out of nowhere just 8 years ago, Jordan Hicks. He went straight from A-ball to the pros. And not many can say that in their MLB journey, it started in A-ball and then they just found themselves pitching on opening day. A non-roster invitee to the 2018 spring training. He then made the opening day roster despite not having pitched, again, above high A. And then he started throwing 100-plus on opening day. And a month later, he threw the fastest pitch in Major League Baseball history at 105.1. And if you can think back to the broadcast call, Danny Mac's surprise, 104, 105. Well, now he shares that record with Aroldis Chapman. And the Cardinals basically said, oh, 105? Yeah, that'll play. And I'd say this was the latest overall surprise I can remember, which makes it my number 3.
It's amazing that this was 8 years ago. I remember being with Mr. DeWitt in January, right around the time of the winter warm-up. And we were talking about the players in the system because Bill DeWitt Jr. pays close attention to the system and actually has a home in Jupiter. So during the winter, he'll go down and watch some of the people work. And he was telling me about these 2 kids, Jordan Hicks and Ryan Helsley, who both threw 100 miles an hour. And lo and behold, both of them wind up being the Cardinal closer, and Hicks coming out of that spring training. And he was something. Just got traded to the White Sox. But another great surprise for the Cardinals that one, 2009? Or 2019?
Well, yes, yeah. It was
19.
18 season, 19 was, well, is it 18, 19?
Yeah, 8 years ago?
See, all of this stuff,
18,
Randy.
yeah.
You know,
18.
When I have
That's
to
right.
do the 18, 19, like, is it the 18 season or the 19 World Series? I'm terrible at that stuff.
Okay. Yeah, me too. All right, my number 2. On April 1st, 1987, Whitey Herzog and Dal Maxfield brought Andy Van Slyke into the office and told him he'd been traded to Pittsburgh for the best catcher in the game at the time, Tony Pena. Van Slyke knew it was April 1st and laughed because he thought it was an April Fool's joke, but Herzog and Maxfield didn't laugh. AVS, Andy Van Slyke, Mike LaValliere, and right-hander Mike Dunn went to Pittsburgh for Pena, an April Fool's surprise. We did not see this coming. Pena would suffer a hand injury early in his Cardinal career and never be what the Redbirds anticipated he would be, but he sure provided a spring surprise in 1987. He was a lot of fun taking that bat away from Howard Johnson, scoring on a sac fly here in the postseason in 1987, and of course his very first home run as a member of the Cardinals, a 3-run blast against the Cincinnati Reds. He had some really good moments with the Cardinals, never though lived up to what the expectation was going to be. He wore number 26, by the way, because he was number 6 in Pittsburgh. He wanted to be number 6 here. That was never going to happen. So
I wonder who has
2
that number.
was for his second team where he wore number 6, 26.
Good connection there. Yeah, there was a nice left-handed bat that wore number 6 for a long time in St. Louis, which is why Tony Pena couldn't have it. How about thinking that it was an April Fool's joke, though?
Yeah,
like,
Andy.
That's got to hurt. That's got to be even deeper
worse.
of a cut.
Right.
After thinking like, oh, no, I'll just go to my locker. Oh, no, I'll go put my stuff on. And they're like, no, seriously, like, get out.
Yeah, go to your locker and clean it out. Yeah.
All right, my number 2, Randy. Here's one I didn't know about. So the Cardinals sort of kind of had Juan Gonzalez at one point. I mean, he was an absolute crusher even late in his career. He tore it up too that spring when the Cardinals had him. He hit .308 with a .462 slug in spring training. He had a home run. I think this was the home run right here, actually. He had a double and 5 RBIs in just 9 games. I can only imagine he would have been Carlos Beltran for this team before Carlos Beltran. Just a veteran with juice still in the tank. However, his short stint in STL was short-lived. He was put on the inactive list with an abdominal strain. He returned to Puerto Rico with an invitation to rejoin the Birds once he was healthy. And guess what? He never came back.
No, decided to stay in Puerto Rico and retired. Now, here's an amazing thing because I think he would have been fun to have on the team because he couldn't hit. But in a 6-year span, in 2004, the Cardinals brought Greg Vaughn to camp. He had been a 50 home run guy. He wound up washing out with the Cardinals and never really did anything. In 2006, Tony La Russa wanted to sign Barry Bonds, but the front office wouldn't let him. But he could have broken the record as a member of the Cardinals, being in the lineup with Albert Pujols. Pujols and Bonds together, that would have been something. But obviously, the front office wouldn't let him sign Barry Bonds. And then in 2008, it was Juan gone. So Tony always liked to get those big stars on their last legs.
And how about missing on 2 of them and also technically missing on 3 because the guy that would have hit, you missed on him for not bringing him in.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a fun one, that spring with Juan gone. All right, my number 1. Late in spring training in 2000, on March 23rd, the Cardinals needed an outfielder, and they got a great one when they shockingly traded Kent Bottenfield and Adam Kennedy to the Angels for Jimmy Baseball, Jim Edmonds. Edmonds had been an all-star and a great player in Anaheim, but had fallen out of favor there, and when the Cardinals asked consultant Jim Leland about Edmonds, Leland gave the thumbs up to Walt Jocketty. So Walt made the move, and the Cardinals got one of the most important players in their run of amazing success that spring in 2000. He would be here through 2007 and would provide so many incredible postseason moments like this one.
And like the one in Houston, right? That's the one my brain always goes to when he swings and he just knows it, and the two fists, right? Fist bump, celebrating, running around the bases. Like, that was it for me. That's what made me a Jimmy baseball fan.
Yeah, he was awesome, and it was a really surprising trade. But, man, what a good one it wound up being for the Cardinals.
Okay, my number one, Randy, it would be a disservice to my generation to not say the best performance, the biggest move, the biggest everything was when the Cardinals in 2001 brought up Albert Pujols. And thank you, Mark McGuire, for your vote of confidence to expedite the move. He literally said to manager Tony La Russa that if he did not promote Pujols to the Major League roster, it might be one of the worst moves you make in your career. Now, maybe we actually should thank Bobby Bonilla for getting injured, but without all that, who knows when the legend of Albert Pujols would have began. We got to know and love his bat in 2001. He won Rookie of the Year, then it was MVP after MVP, Silver Slugger after Silver Slugger, Gold Glove after Gold Glove, and ultimately became the greatest hitting first baseman I've ever seen play the game.
And he was not expected at the beginning of spring training to make that team, and then all of a sudden, just like you say, thump, thump, thump. And Tony got to a point where he could not go north without Albert Pujols, even though he tried. But Bonilla gets hurt in the last spring training game. It was a game against one of their minor league affiliates, pulls the hammy, and there is Albert Pujols showing up in Colorado. And Walt Jocketty went into the clubhouse way before everybody else, sees that Buddy Bates, the equipment manager, had put Pujols up with number 32. He'd worn 68 in spring training. They'd given him 32, and Walt went to Buddy and said, you know, I think this guy's going to be pretty good. We better give him a different number, a better number. And that's how Albert wound up with number 5.
Is that why you also share the interest in having a good baseball number, because you like to think of yourself like a Walt Jocketty-esque type of
yeah,
man?
well, no, I always care about good numbers, and there are good numbers. Like, one of the worst things that ever happened to the Cardinals is Paul Goldschmidt switching from number 44 to number 46. He should have just taken number 44. He'd still be here winning MVPs if he had done that.
You're right. You know what? If you have a good number, having a good number means confidence, and a bad number means no confidence.
There you go. All right, that is the list here in the fight. And coming up, we're going to build a parlay. Stick around. It's coming your way here on Matrix Midwest. All right, time for some risky business here in the fight. We're going to build a parlay, and as you know, the Olympics are underway in Italy, right? Note that they're in Italy, and we've got the Super G coming up on the men's side. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go with Giovanni Franzoni of Italy. He's plus 400. I'm going to go for the home guy to win the men's Super G in the Olympics, because why not?
What is the Super G?
That's like super, and you have to ski in the shape of a G.
It's not the great F, it's the Super G, right? You just go one up. That's awesome. Alpine skiing. You know, the Winter Olympics, unless it's really hockey, it's a background thing for me.
No, I like it. I love the skiing. It's great.
Well, I'm for this play because I'm all about the hometown kid. So that's a great start. And speaking of hockey, Randy, I might as well just go talk a little bit of hockey, because you have Finland and Slovakia kicking things off on Wednesday. And I think the Finnish team, well, they obviously are the better team because they have a heavy money line favorite. But I think the players that they have on this team are really entice me to go this route.
Okay.
Rantanen, Hintz, Aho. Give me Aho to score a goal in that game. So first game on the slate, Sebastian Aho, the Carolina Hurricane, who was hot leaving for the Olympics. He's going to score 2.
Which Sebastian Aho?
It's got to be the good one from Carolina.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
Not the other one.
All right, and let's see what we can make here. Oh, we can make some
$14.50, which means a $100 play, Randy, makes $1,450.
Go Giovanni.
Yeah, please win.
There you go. That is building a parlay here in the fight. And coming up, we've got Take It or Leave It and Story Time with Uncle Randy. Stick around. It's time for Take It or Leave It here in the fight. And Andrew, as you know, even though they didn't win, the Patriots made it to the Super Bowl with a second-year quarterback, a new but established head coach, a great defense, and a good running game. The odds for Super Bowl 61 are out, and a team with a second-year quarterback, a new but established head coach, and a great defense and great running game is plus 7,000. Take it or leave it. Get your futures bet in on the 2026 New York Giants right now.
Yeah, I'm all for this. I am taking this. I also love it, too, because Ravens fans would die.
Oh, yeah.
If John Harbaugh made it to the Super Bowl in his first year with his new team.
No doubt about it, yeah.
So I'm all about that. I want to see some fans get really angry.
The similarities are striking.
They are, very much so. And I actually like the Giants and how they're set up more right now at this point versus where the Patriots were just because of their schedule.
No doubt.
Okay, mine for you, Randy, is this. So the North Dakota State football team has agreed to, well, I guess the university has agreed to join the Mountain West in football for 2026. And the school is expected to pay nearly $12 million to join the league, which is in addition to the $5 million it will have to pay the NCAA to move to FBS. Take it or leave it. North Dakota State makes the college football playoff before Mizzou does.
I'm going to leave that. I'm going to say our Tigers make it before they do.
I hope you're right, but North Dakota State, a lot like James Madison, right? James Madison, very good football team, even when moving over to the Group of 5 stage. They had to wait 2 years. So Mizzou, you have 2 years, and you probably have the huge advantage here. But North Dakota State will just carry over that success into Group of 5. I'm going to take it. I think I'm going to go against the grain and say North Dakota State is there first.
See, they'd have to beat out Missouri State. You got to beat out James
That is
Madison.
true.
You got to beat out all of those Group of 5 schools.
That is true.
Which is going to be extremely
now,
difficult.
if the college football playoff expands, Mizzou will probably get in there first, just because they're from the
Mizzou.
SEC. Well,
Yeah.
and they're the SEC, and it means
that helps.
What does it mean?
That
SEC
means an
means
automatic entry.
more. Right? It means more
It
in
just
the
means
SEC.
more. Yeah. All right, time now for story time with Uncle Randy. Andrew's going to spin the wheel. We'll come up with a decade, we'll come up with a sport, and then we'll come up with a story. And we're going to start with the 1970s. Okay. Can Randy come up with a 1970s story for you? And let's think about what it's going to be.
70s baseball.
70s baseball. Okay, we can do that. Let's see here.
Were those down years for the Cardinals?
They were kind of 500 years. They were not great. Okay, 1970s baseball. I'm trying to go a little later. Let's go with, okay, I think I have one. It was really amazing. So there was one of the great teams of all time, the Big Red Machine in Cincinnati, okay? They won the World Series in 1975, 1976, and then they lost to the Yankees in 1977. Here is their bullpen. They had a closer named Pedro Borbon. They had another relief pitcher named Clay Carroll. They had another lefty reliever named Will McEnany, and another right-hander who wound up being a closer for a while for them named Raleigh Eastwick. What did those 4 relievers, and they only had 4, and by the way, their manager, Sparky Anderson, his nickname was Captain Hook because he would always give the starter the hook, go to the bullpen. Every single one of those Big Red Machine relievers, Borbon, Carroll, McEnany, Eastwick, wound up as members of your St. Louis Cardinals. Now, they didn't last long, and they never formed a great bullpen for the St. Louis Cardinals, but I always thought that was interesting, that those 4, and for whatever reason, the Cardinals thought that that success that they had in Cincinnati would translate to St. Louis. It did not, clearly, but it was pretty cool to have those 4 guys wind up as members of the Cardinals after winning championships as members of the Reds.
How funny. Did the Cardinals try to use those 4 like they did in Cincinnati, where it was just those 4?
They never had them all together.
Got it. Okay, so it wasn't like it was a true carryover. It was bits and pieces at different points in time.
Yeah, but it was pretty fun. It was a pretty interesting.
It's a fun fact.
Yeah, group of guys. And Eastwick and McEnany, they were the main guys for one of those championships, and they just wound up in St. Louis and then wound up flaming out soon after they became members of the Cardinals.
Naturally.
Yeah, that's just the way it worked in the 70s. So there's a little 1970s baseball for you from Uncle Randy. All right, time for this date in sports history, and it was in 2000 that the Reds sent 4 players, Brett Tomko, former Cardinal, Mike Cameron, and 2 minor leaguers to the Mariners, and agreed to a contract extension to obtain Seattle superstar Ken Griffey Jr. Jr.'s 9-year, $116.5 million contract, the richest package in baseball history at the time, or in Reds history. But in the current market, it was considered quite a bargain. In 9 injury-plagued years for the Reds, Griffey would hit 210 home runs and play at least 130 games in only his first season there and his last year there. Otherwise, he was hurt all the time, unfortunately.
Next to Mike Trout, favorite non-Cardinal of all time.
Is that right?
Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah,
he was just so fun to watch.
Yeah, he was, and this swing, watch this swing. By the way, hit home run number 500 right here in St. Louis. Hits a home run here off of Andy Bennis.
Wow.
Going the other way. Man, he had a swing. And he was right there. You know, we kind of forget with McGuire and Sosa in 1998, and those two hit 70 and 66 respectively. He had 56 that year. He had a really great year.
He's an absolute tank. Now, the one you're talking about, the home run, you said home run number 500, right? Was that Father's Day?
It was Father's Day. Yep, his dad was in the stands.
Oh my gosh, I have a baseball card of that moment.
Yeah, pretty incredible.
Of the fans in the background and Ken Griffey doing it, and then I can vividly remember the celebration, walking over to his dad after crossing home plate. Like, that was just a cool thing. A lot of players don't get those moments. Well,
No.
one, a lot of players don't hit 500
Right,
home runs.
exactly.
But the other thing, too, is you get a moment with your dad who also played with you in Seattle,
Yeah,
who knew
awesome.
what you had to go through. I mean, just the overall Griffey connection there was
It was
great.
fantastic. Hey, don't forget to tell your friends that The Fight is on Matrix Midwest every day at 5 and 10 p.m. and then again at 7 a.m. We're always available on the KMOV app and the new Matrix Midwest app, plus on your favorite podcast platform as well. Sign up to play in The Fight. Go to matrixmidwest.com, click on The Fight with Carricker and Company. Use the drop-down menu to sign up and play on Tuesdays. And we would love to have you be a part of it.
Now, I said my favorite non-Cardinal of all time. Who would be your favorite non-Cardinal of all
You know
time?
what? Probably in my childhood, Reggie Jackson,
Oh, that's a good one.
Mr. October.
Yeah, pretty good player to cheer for.
Yeah, he had a few home runs. He was fun to watch play. He was terrific. And I would have loved to have had him as a member of the Cardinals.
Oh, man, I would have loved to have Ken Griffey or Mike Trout before Mike Trout got injured.
Yeah,
all
we'll
the
take
time.
Mike Trout now.
He does like St. Louis. He
Yeah.
told Albert
Yeah.
all the time he wanted to come here.
Yeah, he asked Albert when Albert came back, he said, "Is it always like this?" Albert said, "Yeah, man, it's always like this." So yeah, he thinks it's always like this.
Although he'll show up today and be like,
yeah.
what happened
He
here?
actually had a reasonably good year last year until he got hurt.
He always is good until
Yeah.
he gets hurt.
Yeah.
Like, he is
But
Mr.
then-
Consistent
Then
out
he gets
there.
hurt. Yeah, how'd you like to be paying that $440 million contract
Yeah,
out?
well, the good thing for them is at least they had him for 13 years on a lower-ended deal versus,
Yeah.
like, you know, some of these guys, some of the contracts, Juan Soto is probably not going to live up to $765 million.
Yeah, right. So it's hard to live up to $765 million, but
Unless you're Shohei.
we would like to try.
Yeah, you know what? Take a chance on us.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, thanks for tuning in. For Andrew Rogers and our outstanding director, Tyler Klaus, I'm Randy Carricker, and we appreciate everybody tuning in.
Oh, yeah, it was a great show, great time, and hopefully you enjoyed the Super Bowl because there's not going to be football until the UFL kicks things
We'll
off.
have to come up with 4 downs from the UFL.
Go Battlehawks.
Yeah, we'll see you next time here in The Fight. So long, everyone.